say hypocrisy, thy name is Jacinda Ardern, Sid. Can you believe it? I mean, lecturing us from coal, says the South Pacific, but if it wasn't for our coal and our exports and the fact that we actually have jobs in this country, they wouldn't be getting their $1.5 billion every year from our taxpayers.
Yeah, that's right, Peter. New Zealand, it talks a very big game on climate change, and as you sort of pointed out earlier, and I mean, the other thing too is that, you know, they don't have a binding target for the 2020 Kyoto target, we do, and they're trying to use carryover credits to meet their target, but then we're getting criticised for using the same thing to meet our target, and we're going to meet our target and they're struggling to meet their target. So there's a fair bit of hypocrisy there. And I think the other thing is today, Winston Peters, her Deputy Prime Minister, he sort of walked back this a little bit, and he sort of made the fairly sensible comment, I think, that at the same time Australia's getting bagged, the Pacific Islanders are looking to China, which has an economy based on coal-fired power, for loans. So I think there's not a lot of logic to what is being said. And I mean, and sorry, I'll get off this in a minute. But look, the other thing is Australia's emissions, if you take out land, are like 402 million tonnes. New Zealand's are about 37 million tonnes, and China's about 11 billion tonnes. So,
yes,
you know...
exactly right.
So what can you say?
Well, let me play Winston Peters' grab, because he's the guy she did a deal with, if people will remember, to hang on to government, to form government actually, it's a minority government, on the back of cuts to immigration, but she likes to lecture us to take everyone off Manus and Nauru. Let's have a listen to Winston Peters.
Many Pacific countries that are seeking loans, cheap loans from China. Now, those loans are on the backs of coal-fired everything in mainland China, as we well know. So, you know, there's a big picture we have to contemplate here, and we've got to ensure that when we act in this big picture, we act with consistency and integrity.
Now, Rita, I don't normally say I think that Winston Peters speaks a lot of sense, but he's speaking a lot of sense there. But, I mean, the way New Zealand is with Jacinda Ardern, half their emissions come from agriculture. She wants agriculture exempted for her unrealistic target. New Zealand's basically what you would say this, wouldn't you? The outside's wokeland. New wokeland under her. I mean, it's just crazy. She lectures the world.
Well, we should do the same. If it's good enough for them, we'll just say we're going to be carbon neutral by 2050. We're just going to exclude industries such as mining and manufacturing and anything else that actually adds to our emissions. I mean, there's just an absurd point to make, to say that we're going to be carbon neutral and then exclude your biggest emission item. It's just absolutely absurd. But it's accepted uncritically by all the media, who seem to just be her, I don't know, they seem to be almost like a fan club. There is no scrutiny of what she says. The fact that this woman came to power with this alliance, that she only got about 1 in 3 votes, that she was elected on a platform of massive cuts to immigration, none of that is ever brought up. It's always that she's just this woke warrior who's going to save the world. It is infantile.
And you know, we'll move on to other issues too, but you know, I do believe we should be working in our region. We should be providing aid. We should be thinking strategically where some of these nations go in terms of national security and defence support. And it should be us. It should not be China, Sid. But of course, this area, this region, I've travelled a lot of it when I worked in politics. It's rife, full of nepotism and corruption and some pretty dodgy dealing at the highest levels. And aid money in the past has gone into projects that are less than properly scrutinised, if I can say that. And you go through some of these communities on the ground, there is a lot of hardship with ordinary people in the Pacific Islands. So you know, even our generosity isn't really getting necessarily where it needs to, and less climate and more common sense is probably what they need.
I think that's right. I think that's right, Peter. I mean, we have certainly had major programs for the last 50 years, I think, and And I think we have tried to impose some rigour in some of these areas, and I think this is the complication with the Chinese factor, because we now have a competitor that perhaps on the surface perhaps is not imposing as much rigour, and we're being played off a little bit, I think.